Okay, so welcome to week 3 of the MA Creative Writing by Distance Learning. And I'm here today with Jim Poyner, a very wonderful photographer. And we're here in a cafe that Jim uses as part of his creative practice that he calls roaming, that he's going to tell us a little bit more about. But first of all, Jim, do you want to say a little bit about what you do?
Thank you very much. I'm a commercial and editorial photographer based in York. I'm self-employed, and I have a small part of my photographic life is my own artistic practice, if you like. A lot of my work is client-driven, and the small part, I guess the bit that we're here to talk about most, is the bit that I do for myself, self-driven photography. I cover most of Yorkshire. I'm based in York, and when I'm not working for clients, I'm roaming around at night time with the camera.
Great. And I think one of the things that, one of the reasons why I asked Jim to come and talk to us is because you are an example, really, of a creative person who is making a very real income in the real world, and also developing your creative practice as part of that, which I think is interesting to everybody on the course. It's that constant tension, isn't it, between trying to find time to do the commercial stuff and kind of realise your creative aspirations, and sometimes they cross over and sometimes they don't cross over quite so much.
It's very, very nice when they do cross over, when you find a client that asks you to do work that really hits your creative sweet spot, if you like, and you can really get stuck into it. Or in my case, clients that give me what I like to call loose briefs, where you can
That's quite funny.
You can interpret them as you like and just go and do your thing. But a lot of the time, my work is quite constrained to the things I have to do, pictures I have to get, and that's where the bulk of the income is, effectively. But it is very nice to be able to flex your creative muscle and give yourself time to develop that, to find out what it is you want to do with your creative side, and not get too immersed in the client-driven world that you forget all about why you started doing whatever your creative practice is.
Absolutely, that can easily happen, can't it?
Very easily, yeah.
Okay, so most importantly, to start off, what I want to know is, what is your favourite word? We've all been talking about that over the last couple of weeks. What's yours?
Okay, been thinking about this. It's serendipity, which is a word my dad used to use when he came across something nice. And
sounds a nice word.
Yeah, it
sounds
is.
Nice.
And I think I'm not a religious person. I don't really believe in karma and stuff, but I do believe that if you are open to nice things happening, if you leave gaps in your conscious to accept the weird and wonderful and happenstance, then they come along. And you have to recognise them as that and be glad of it, if you like, and make the most of it. And I like the word so much, it's the middle name of my daughter as well now.
I didn't know that.
Which is really cute, because she's 5 and she can't say it properly, which makes it even cuter.
Brilliant, thank you. Okay, so one of the things that you've been talking to me about recently is this part of your creative practice that you call roaming.
Yeah.
Can you tell us a little bit more about that?
That really started 10 years ago, when, I should probably started before that, but it's when you're working for a living all the time, you're working the hours that the client demands and the places the client demands, and it's hard to find time and space in your head to just leave gaps, to leave those spaces and fill them with serendipitous things. So before I had children, I had a studio in the centre of York, and I would gather things and people and props and experiment and learn new things. But time constraints now mean that doesn't happen. So I go out at night, normally, with a camera, and just walk. If there's things happening about, like in York, we have a race course, and on race days, town is always very busy. There's always lots of weird stuff happening.
Lots of drunk people.
Lots of drunk people. They're always good. So it's being out in town with a camera, or if I'm camping, just walking out into the fields at night and just separating myself from the rest of the world. So I'm on my own, and I'm just open to seeing things without any agenda whatsoever. And it gives me a chance to absorb a bit of the world, to ground myself, and also to practice the techniques of recording things in a way that isn't driven by a client, that you're recording things in a way that's driven by what they are there and then, which is a very instantaneous, mechanical method of doing things, but it's completely different to my commercial practice.
Okay.
So it helps me develop skills, it helps me widen my experiences, and gives me back a little sense of wonder as well.
Wonder, okay, because that's really interesting to me in that we're talking this week about ways of seeing. So writing is seeing.
Yeah.
So you were the obvious choice to talk to about that, because so much of what you do, I guess, I'm imagining, is about ways of seeing things. So how does roaming help you to see things differently from perhaps when you're working in a studio, taking portraits in a more kind of formal, thought-through way?
It takes off all the rules. Basically, there's no one telling me what they want a view or a picture or a portrait to look like. All of my commercial work has a point. It has to deliver a message, whether it's a flattering portrait or whether it's making a conference look interesting, or
Could be a hard job.
Yeah, often, or making a wedding speech look funny. You know what the brief is. You have to deliver it. With roaming, there's none of that. So you can just record things. You can just snap away, and you can do that covertly with a camera by your side and just click and walk away. Or you can watch things, look for little stories, little movements of people, little gatherings of people, little moments of tension, and you've got a very short amount of time to think, how do I want to portray this? Do I want these people in a flattering light or in a not flattering light? Because you make decisions like that when you see things. You make judgments about people.
Do you? You're actually making those decisions, even though it's very
I think
instant.
I think everyone does. If you saw a fight outside a pub, you would normally subconsciously decide who's the goodie and who's the baddie.
Okay.
In it, you know, just as you were walking past, even if you're not involved at all. But how you portray that could be completely different based on your angle of view, whose face you can see, the particular moment you pick. So you have to decide as you're going along how you want to show that, what the point of that image is. And that's very different from the commercial, because you've got a fraction of a second to do that, to make that decision. And if it's a moment of tension, you're out and about, you then need to get out of there as well, because people might not want you hanging around, sort of thing.
So, has that ever happened? Has anyone said, why are you taking my photo?
Yeah, absolutely.
What do you say? What do you do?
It depends how tense the situation is. Normally, I would just walk away, and if it's a tense situation, there's enough happening there to mean no one's going to follow you. But I would tuck my cameras away and look as tall as possible.
Well, you are very tall, so that's a good thing. But I guess there's a whole ethical issue around that, because something else that we talk about a lot in writing is who owns the story, you know. So as you were talking there, I was thinking, gosh, you know, you come across something like that happening and you want to capture it. For a writer, we can go away and do that sort of secretly and fictionalise it, and no one ever needs to know. But I mean, how it's different for a photographer. It's different because you're there, and it's a kind of reportage, isn't it? So how do you handle that? What do you do?
Like I say, you just have to make a decision and go for it. And I watch more than I photograph, much more. And I'm always walking away from things going, oh, should have got that shot, should have got that shot. And in the street photography world, there is a bit of a mantra that just says, just push the button.
Okay.
When you're feeling the butterflies coming, and whether it's excitement because things are just lining up and they're going to look perfect, or there's a moment of tension, and you're like, oh, do I? You push the button.
And then decide later if you
and then decide whether you're going to keep it or not.
Yes.
But I prefer to just stay. I prefer to just watch it and engage with people. if need be. And often, especially, say, stag and hen parties, which you get a lot in York, and they might be interacting in a way with the built environment or the locals or each other or another stag and hen party that just makes a really nice situation occur. And if at that point I make a judgment and go, that's the click, and they turn to me and engage, then I'll stop, I'll chat to them, I'll switch into commercial photographer mode and go, you guys go together to get a picture, I'll email it to you.
So that's a sort of very different kind of mode where you're editing as you make the image, which is sort of what we've been talking about, these two phases of writing and then crafting, and eventually you kind of oscillate between the two, just writing and editing and crafting. Okay, so you gave me a beautiful quote by Dorothea Lange: "A camera is a tool for learning how to see without a camera."
Yeah.
Camera is a tool for learning how to see without a camera. So what do you think she meant by that?
Dorothea Lange was a portrait photographer commercially, and she was employed by the US government to record the Great Depression. And she took her skills as a portrait photographer, someone who could engage with people and draw out a bit of personality, and went into these horrible situations to photograph the real people rather than the view of the horrible situation that you might get. And her drive was to show that all human beings have a humanity, a moral courage, a beauty and an intelligence despite their circumstances. And she called it the visual world that was out there that you don't quite see. You see the picture, but you don't really see the world that's within it. And she was driven to draw out the humanity of the individuals in the circumstance.
Okay.
So before that, a lot of, say, war photography was about the battles or about a scene happening, a flag going up, someone getting shot. And then Dorothea Lange and later people like Don McCullum would come along and they portrait the people there and go, I want to engage with your eyes, I want to read into your situation. So she showed, by demonstrating the humanity of the people in the horrible circumstances of the Great Depression, she hoped to show people a world that was there, that they could then be aware of and notice. So she's opened the door with her camera. She's educated people into seeing a little bit further by showing it can be done.
Okay. I'm going to sniff now, so we'll have to edit this bit out. I'm really sorry. I'm sitting here thinking, oh God. Sorry, you were doing so well, and all I could think was, I have to do a massive sniff. Oh God. I'm doing really well. I'll edit this bit out. Oh, sorry. Ugh. Wait, what else? So, just leave it. I'll just leave a bit of a space, and then we can edit it.
Cool.
Yeah. Okay. So, one of the things that we've been thinking about this week, and some of the reading that people have been doing, is this wonderful extract from Mark Doty, which I know that you've read, the poet Mark Doty. And he talks about this gap between experience and words, so trying to put into words what you might feel, what you might see, what you might notice.
Yeah.
And it strikes me that that's sort of what's going on for you a little bit too when you're making an image, but maybe not in quite the same way. I don't know if we can just sort of unpick that a bit. I mean, for me as a writer, often it's so difficult to... Doty talks about words as being slippery and quite arbitrary, and it's about how do you find the words that fit that feeling, and it's really challenging.
Yeah.
What's it like as a photographer to do that?
I think it depends on the end product that you're showing people. If you're trying to sum a situation up or a view in a single image, then you have to give enough information to get your point across, to get a flavour across, if you are making a point. But you also have to leave big gaps
Mm-hmm.
in that questions,
Mm-hmm.
if you like, around it, so that people can add things to it.
Okay, so enough space for them to make an interpretation.
Exactly. Yeah.
That's very like writing too, actually.
And you never know who's going to be looking at the image.
Mm-hmm.
You know, with personal work that's not going straight to a client, you would hope that people would engage with it. And the bigger gaps you leave, or the more intriguing gaps that you leave,
Mm-hmm.
the longer they're going to engage with it.
Mm.
So you want to maybe engender a little bit of identification and a little bit of intrigue in an image, so that an image is open to being interpreted the wrong way or the way you said. It doesn't really matter. Really.
There is no right or wrong, really,
no,
is
exactly. But it is very hard with a single image to do that. If you're presenting a series, a documentary set of images,
Kind of narrative.
yeah, like analogous to a longer poem, a longer story,
Or a series of poems, or
exactly,
or a short story.
yeah,
Mm-hmm.
then you've got a lot more to play with,
Mm-hmm.
and you can develop a sense of storytelling in your work, and follow characters or change viewpoints or use your timing to put a point across throughout that narrative of pictures.
Okay.
And it gives you a lot more scope to change things afterwards.
Yes.
As well. Because going back to the example of wedding photography,
Okay.
very recently I was at a wedding where the speeches, there was one very good speech and two really bad speeches. And they weren't just bad, they were dull. And so when the good speech was going on, I won't say which it was, there was a crying bride, emotionally crying bride. There was a shocked looking
Because she was
mother-in-law.
happy,
Yes,
presumably.
a
Okay.
mother-in-law that was shocked with some of the details that were coming out.
Yes.
There was clapping in the crowd. So I'm turning and recording all of this. And that's a true representation of that speech.
Mm-hmm.
The other two, none of that happened. They were dull as dishwater.
Okay.
But when the client gets those images, I will sprinkle the applause and the good reaction shots across all three speeches so that those people look better.
Yes. So you mentioned the word true, but it's actually quite a tricky word, isn't it? Truth is a really tricky thing. You know, people say the camera never lies, but that's not true.
That's long gone.
Yeah.
Yeah. And you know, with using that example, I have a job to do. My job is to make that event look great and to make everyone look really good. All those images were taken within 20 minutes of each other.
Okay.
I just reordered them, and no one will ever know, because my feedback from clients is that their wedding images become their memories.
Well, that's what I was thinking. It shapes somebody's memories.
Absolutely.
So this thing about seeing, what I'm very interested in is if I experience something or see something and then I write a poem about it, I'm very aware that in actually writing it, in order to create a really good poem, a poem that works, I'm very often changing it. I'm fictionalising, or maybe not even fictionalising, that might be too strong a word, but it does get changed somehow in the mix. So it then becomes not really the experience that you had, but something slightly different. The narrative I in a poem, if it's written in the first person, isn't really necessarily you and what you're feeling.
Your response to a situation, whether you're writing, I guess, or taking pictures, is one response. But it might not be the response that you end up hoping for when you deliver the work.
Yes.
You might think someone else will receive this differently, and then you start thinking about what the message is. So you're not telling a story from your perspective, you're opening it up for someone else's perspective to be there. You're giving them the raw ingredients of what happened or what you saw, what you've observed, but you're allowing them to maybe, I guess, sometimes you hope they will see what you saw.
Mm-hmm.
They will gain the experience that you did, but they might not. And I think it must be quite difficult when you're writing to find that balance between this was my experience, this is the beauty, for example, of what I saw, and hope that not only comes across, so someone's receiving your wisdom, your recollection, your wisdom, but they're also immersed in it enough by your description, by your words, that they can put themselves into that situation.
Yes, because we each bring to it as viewers or readers something of our own, don't we?
Yeah.
So, okay, so in a nutshell, if you could summarise, this is probably an impossible task that I'm asking you to do. If you could sort of say how you think developing as a photographer has changed how you see the world, or continues to change how you see the world, what do you think it would be? How do you think that's?
I think I've certainly gained a greater empathy for other people because I'm primarily a people photographer. Although a lot of my nighttime roaming is built architecture or the night sky or found objects. It's people is at the core of my practice. And I think the older I get and the more practiced I get at doing it, you identify a little bit more with the people on the other side. You kind of see them looking at you a bit more. You're not just taking their picture, you're interacting with them a little bit. You're affecting their world by being there.
Yes.
And I think that's something I didn't used to appreciate.
Okay.
And so now you can choose to take that on board in what you do, or you can choose to try and be the invisible person moving through the crowd again. But I think I'm much more aware that I affect situations by being there now. And I'm a little bit more mature about how that might go down across different age groups and demographics of people, and try and be a bit more appreciative of my presence when I'm doing things, so that you can try and make that invisible or accept that that affects the situation that you're in.
So that's the process, but what about then the finished product? Say you have an exhibition and you've taken some photographs of people and you're displaying them. How would that sort of feed into that?
I think I'd be a bit more, before, most of my earlier exhibitions were nudes, and they were using professional models, people who had agreed to model. And that was fine. They were fine with that. They knew what was going on. But if I was doing character portraits of people, I think now, as opposed to 10 years ago, I would be a lot more sympathetic towards how that person feels when they're looking out of that picture. I didn't realise at the time, but I've done exhibitions before when the sitters came to it and came in disguise.
Really?
Because they weren't sure they would like it. They weren't sure they'd be happy. They knew they liked the pictures, they'd seen the pictures, but they weren't sure they'd be happy with other people looking at them and being able to hear other people's recollections.
It must be a very strange experience, seeing that.
I did, when I lived in the Highlands, I knew a painter who did these large format landscapes, and they were always used very muted tones across the whole thing, of the Highlands and Highland life. And I helped him organise an exhibition, and at his exhibition were some people that didn't know what he looked like. And he overheard two people looking at one of his paintings, going, "Oh, they're very lovely, but they're just a bit dull." And it absolutely put a dagger through his heart.
Yes.
But he was passionate about his palette. That was what he was about. So he created a painting in response to this called Jubilee, which is a massively bright psychedelic picture of a jester blowing a trumpet with rainbows and stars coming out of it. And it's the most beautiful thing. I bought it off him in the end. But that was his response to these people going, "I can do that. I just choose not to. This is my thing." And he hadn't been challenged like that before. And I haven't had that situation in my work, but I would dread it.
Well, it's like the equivalent of my Amazon reviews.
Exactly.
I stopped reading those.
Yeah.
But, I think it is interesting, isn't it, that our ways of seeing as a practitioner change even in response to how other people see us seeing.
Absolutely.
It's such a complex
And I think you have to either be responsive to that or stand your ground. And I think even the process of deciding whether you're going to stand your ground or whether you're going to be responsive is a decision in itself.
Absolutely.
So it's a very complex process. And
changes over time.
Exactly. And, when I'm working with often young students, who will photograph everything, no matter what.
Mm-hmm.
Unless it's a picture of themselves, they don't think about it at all.
Okay.
You know, they're just recording things.
Yes.
So I would make them photograph themselves so that they do get a bit more reflective about their work and do think about how other people see things, that other people see them.
Okay.
But at the end of the day, it's your decision how you practice and your style and your delivery. But you're not in isolation. No artist works in isolation. Or if they do, they don't make any money. So you have to be aware that there is that world out there, and you develop your decisions about how you deal with that as you go along.
Okay, well, thank you so much. It's been fascinating
My pleasure.
talking to you. And you're going to be dropping into the discussion forums later
Indeed.
on this week,
Yeah.
which we really look forward to. So any questions that you have for Jim about what he's been talking about, and please just ask him. He's going to be around.
Just don't ask me to spell serendipity. It'll be fine.
Thank you very much.
My pleasure.